friends, and welcome to What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hance, and each week I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week, I'm visiting with Penny Peyser of Sonnets from Suburbia. Lady Penelope shakes up Shakespeare with her own quirky, hilarious take on modern life through an Elizabethan lens. Discover why she won't leave her house and a secret from her past. With her trusty ukulele, she's eager to convince that a poem without a rhyme is like a chip without a dip. Sonnets from Suburbia has been called an enchanting hour of entertainment by Fringe UK, and the play is adapted from Miss Peyser's two award-winning collections of sonnets. Sonnets from Suburbia debuted at the Hollywood Fringe in 2023, played in Edinburgh Fringe in 2024, and is set to play at the San Diego Fringe this May.
Well, Lady Penelope came to be way before my show. I started doing these poetry readings, and then one of many publishers who rejected me kindly said, well, you know, you're an actress and you say these sonnets perform well. Why don't you try to get some kind of online presence? Why don't you start making videos? So I started on that project. I don't know, it just came to me that it would be funny to juxtapose that costume with the things I talk about in my sonnets, which are not Elizabethan.
There's one with you vacuuming.
Yeah, when I started shooting those videos, I went through about maybe 90 seconds of being self-conscious out in public in that costume. And then, well, you know, partly because it's LA and they go, oh, well, whatever. You know, I mean, I went to Starbucks with it and she said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm on a coffee break.
Penny Peyser is an actress, documentary maker, and writer. She is best known to television audiences for Rich Man, Poor Man 2, The Tony Randall Show, Crazy Like a Fox, Knots Landing, Pandora's Clock, and The Blue and Gray, and Shameless. She made her big screen debut in All the President's Men, followed by The In-Laws, The Frisco Kid, and Messenger of Death, to name a few. And in 2008, Miss Peyser and her husband, Doug McIntyre, produced, wrote, and directed the award-winning documentary Trying to Get Good, The Jazz Odyssey of Jack Sheldon, featuring Billy Crystal, Clint Eastwood, Alan Bergman, and a raft of jazz members. And apparently, in need of some quiet, she followed that with Still Point, an examination of a Zen meditation center in Northern California. Her first two books in her Sonnets from Suburbia series are available on Amazon. Penny, welcome to What the Fringe.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to meet you. It's always great to meet a fellow Fringer. It really is.
I'm so glad you're here. Well, so we got connected because we're both performing at the San Diego Fringe, and I checked you out and I was like, this lady is funny. Like, I saw your stuff, and I might have been, I mean, maybe give it away, but it was the dress and the tennis shoes.
That's not giving it away. That's okay.
I was like, this lady's quirky. She's my kind of quirk. And I'm so excited to have you here today.
Oh, thank you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your show as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, first, let's start talking about your journey as an artist. You have had really an extensive career in the entertainment industry, from television and film and stage. So talk to me a little bit about Hollywood, right? Like, that's where you are and what that was like in your early years of your life. And then we'll talk a little bit about what it's like now. But tell me about the early career that you've had there.
Well, I'm from New York, and I started my career off-Broadway, which I loved. And my favorite credit from there was my first equity job. I played the girl in Lanford Wilson's famous play, The Hot L Baltimore. And it was just heaven. 8 shows a week was my idea of heaven. And then, you know, early 1976, the bottom sort of fell out of off-Broadway, and I couldn't get arrested on Broadway. So I decided, and I had done a small part in a little film called All the President's Men. I had one scene with Dustin Hoffman. And in New York at the time, the film, I mean, there's so much filming there now, but, you know, the place to go was Hollywood. So I took out a loan from Equity so I could rent a car, and I came out here, sublet my apartments, stayed with my aunt and uncle, and I was there for the summer, basically, and I never went back. Anyway, I was very fortunate. I got a series, Rich Men, Poor Men, Book 2, which was very successful. And then the next season, and I mean, I was just so lucky as a youngster. And I'm so glad I'm not starting today, by the way. I just think today is, I mean, being an artist has throughout history has always been a challenge, but today it's really crazy. Anyway, so I followed that with the Tony Randall Show. And then I was just very fortunate. I did 2 other series after that, Crazy Like a Fox, Knots Landing, and just a lot of, I was just able to get a lot of work as a young woman. It was wonderful. And I became a mother, had a couple of warm-up marriages that didn't work out, which really kind of saps your career energy, if anyone relates to that out there. So that's how my career began.
You were saying you wouldn't want to be starting in your 20s now. What are you seeing are some of the challenges for actors and actresses in the film and television industry in particular that you didn't face that they're having to face now?
First of all, while there seems to be a ton of, there is a ton of work. I mean, we all see all the streaming series and all that stuff. There's far less money. And from a financial point of view, I think most kids in the business today are not going to have pensions. And since I am at the pension age, man, oh man, I feel so blessed and fortunate. I mean, during the writer's strike, my husband is a WGA member, made his living in television as a writer for over 20 years. He was, marching on the picket line, and he was standing next to people going, these kids, they're not going to have pensions because they're even though there are a lot of series, there are only 8 episodes, where in my day it was 24, 26. And writers, if you were on a show, you got paid for 26 episodes. Big difference when you're only paid for 6, 8, and you're getting paid less. I mean, it's really remarkable. But so that's one thing. The other thing, just on a very personal note, knowing how I was when I was 24, 25, and this may sound weird to some people or even prudish, but the sexual stuff that kids are asked to do these days, that would have been really tough for me. Boy. I mean, I was, the only kind of nudity I was ever into was funny nudity. I mean, in New York, I did a bit of streaking, which is probably even dashing across the stage naked. Some reason I was up for that in my 20s. I even organized I was in a musical called Diamond Studs, which was studs that has nothing to do with, it's not
what we're thinking, no.
It was a cowboy Jesse James thing, so it was studs on your boot and your shirt. Yeah, I just all of a sudden thought we're in a double-decker theater. We were in the upstairs theater. There was an English comedy review in the lower, and it just so happened that we had 2 shows on a Saturday, and it happened that during our, half-hour show break between shows, they were at a certain point in their shows, and for some reason, the ladies' dressing room opened up onto their stage, basically. So I said to all the gals, I said, listen, I got a great idea. Because they had an audience participation part where they said to the audience, all right, we are going outside and we will tolerate no rowdy behavior. I said, oh, that's a cue. That's a cue. I said, girls, so the first week, I said, look, let's just, because we were all in period Western costume, let's just take our tops off. And I gave everyone squirt guns. I really don't know where this came from, because this is 50 years ago, literally. And so I gave her squirt guns, and I go, trust me, no one's going to look at your face, and no one will remember who you are, because we were topless. So he said, no rowdy behavior. And I said, well, all we'll do is just run around the stage. We'll squirt the guy on, with our squirt guns, and then run off. The audience won't even know what happened. So we did it. And of course, it was a huge hit and so weird, because they're watching this 4-person review, and then 10 women run out topless out of nowhere who have not been in the show and were not going to be in the show after. So the next week, I got everyone to get down to their underpants. And we had one intrepid guy who came up, found a diamond-studded jockstrap, and he came out with us.
Oh my gosh, so much fun.
So aside from that, that was a very long-winded way of saying that that kind of nudity to me is fun. The kind where you need an intimacy coordinator.
Not your jam.
No.
That's okay. That's a delightful story. I'm so glad you shared that. It's really fun. I can't imagine a dressing room opening to someone else's stage. But it was that time. That was just all these little found spaces and everything.
Well, actually, this theater was a very nice space. And the bottom floor was like a cabaret space. And the stage was, only this high. It was small. The audience, it was a 99-seat theater or less, probably a little less. Ours was bigger upstairs. It worked out great.
Okay, so I have a silly question for you. And honestly, I read it and I thought it was really funny and I want to talk about it. But honestly, I think it's probably the least interesting thing about you. But I do have to say it because it was on your website. On your website, your bio says, I haven't had a lot of screen kisses, but I will admit to Harrison Ford and Sam Elliott, not too shabby. That made me laugh so much. And I was like, I do want to know, what was it like playing opposite these fellas and having on-screen kisses with them?
It was, my big disappointment about the Harrison Ford kiss was that it was just sort of a peck and we only did one take. I'm like, and I was too shy to go, wait, if this was today, I'd go, wait, I can do better. I think we need another take. But I was a shy little actress standing there with Gene Wilder and Harrison Ford, and so I wasn't going to say anything. But Harrison was so handsome. Oh, my God. And this movie, The Frisco Kid, which I recommend, kooky movie, very funny and weirdly violent at the same time, which is why the audience went, what? But it had a huge afterlife in B'nai B'riths all across the country because it was about a rabbi. It was a Western starring a rabbi from Poland. So weird.
Yes, weird.
So the kiss with Harrison happened as I was marrying Gene Wilder. And as the best man, he didn't understand he wasn't supposed to kiss the bride during the ceremony. Anyway, but
did you get to kiss Gene Wilder in that scene?
I must have, but who cared?
You were like, man, Harrison Ford was really who was important. I'm sorry to Gene Wilder.
Yeah, no, I was over it. I don't even remember. I danced with Gene and I was with, I had all these romantic looks, but no, I didn't really care. That's like it's really weird when when you were me at that age. And when my first movie, All the President's Men, I had a scene with Dustin Hoffman, who was the only man I'd ever cut out pictures of, ever. And of course, the whole day I was shooting, I was just like...
You're like, I can't even do my job, right? Wow.
I was crazed. And of course, the producer of that movie was Robert Redford.
Oh my gosh.
Bob, I like to call him. But I had no bandwidth, I didn't know that word then, left for Bob. I mean, it's like, he came up to, visit on the set, and I was just like... So cued into Dustin and Bob comes by and goes, hey, Penny, how's it going? I went, yeah, fine. Anyway.
You're like, I'm busy gazing. That's so cute.
But Sam Elliott, I had a lot of love scenes with, and that was also fun.
That's so good. Well, it is so funny. I would never really want to be 20 again, especially for those reasons where you can't keep your head straight in front of Dustin Hoffman. What a fun journey. Now, you and your husband have made a few documentaries. What drew you to that genre, and what was that like working with him?
Well, when Doug and I got married, we've been married 23 years. And to be in a good marriage, which was something, unfortunately, new to me, this whole side of myself that had been dormant for so many years between raising two boys, now men, and dealing with a precarious relationship, I was just shut down on that side. And so anyway, when Doug and I got together, he introduced me to this wonderful trumpet player, legendary guy, now departed, named Jack Sheldon. And we started going, as we were dating, we were going to see a lot of them. And then we got married. And then at one point, Doug said, wow, somebody ought to make a movie about him. And it turned out it was us. We just started. We didn't know what we were doing. We spent about a year trying to raise money, and that went nowhere. I mean, because documentaries, independent documentaries, you know. And so one day, Jack had a minor stroke, and all of a sudden we're going, my God, the subject of our documentary might pass away before we even... So I just went out without telling my husband, and I went to this well-known camera store in Hollywood, and I came home with a $5,000 camera.
Wow.
Of course, on my credit card.
Yeah, that was an expensive camera.
And I said, honey, we're starting this. So we just started, and it took 5 years, but it was so worth it. We had an amazing cast, as you read earlier, and we met incredible musicians, and it just, you know, interviewing people like Clint Eastwood and Billy Crystal and, you know, Oscar winner Alan Bergman and just, you know, Johnny Mandel, Oscar winner. I mean, just, we had an amazing journey, and we had a great time. We did really well on the film circuit. It came out in 2008.
Well, what a gift to Jack and like his family, especially after facing such tremendous health issues. And for you to have the bravery to go, we're doing this. I don't know where the funding's coming from, but I'm going to go get a camera and we're taking care of it. And now it lives on, you know, for future generations. Well, let's talk about your show, Sonnets from Suburbia. So what is your relationship to Shakespeare?
I love Shakespeare. And when I was very young and got out of college, I had the very naive idea that that's all I'm going to do is Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yep. That dream.
And I remember telling that to Dustin Hoffman, and I remember him going,
Sure, girl.
Yeah. People were kind to me in my naivete. I think I was so naive that people were like, she's just too naive even to make fun of. I can't do it. So, and I've been in Shakespeare acting classes. I weirdly and sadly at this point, I have never actually I've never done one of the plays, which is insane.
Right.
I know. About 15 years ago, I was in a Shakespeare class at the esteemed, if anyone in Hollywood, the Antaeus Theater. They're renowned classical theater in LA. And they have amazing teachers. So I went there, and one week our assignment was to write a sonnet because our teacher wanted us to get up close and personal with iambic pentameter, which I felt I already was. And I've always loved rhyming my whole life. So I went home and I dashed off a sonnet, and I was like, wow, that was really fun. And so I wrote 3 more, and I came back to school the next week going, teacher, I've got 4. And he said, that's great, read 1. Anyway, but undeterred, I kept writing them. And that was 15 years ago. And I have 2 books out now, and I have a 3rd one coming out. Hopefully, it would have been out now, but I've been a little distracted by my show, Sonnets from Suburbia.
Yes, so cute.
More Candles and Cakes, Sonnets from Suburbia, Romance Dance. Great Valentine's Day gift or anniversary. Anyway, so I'd always, because they perform very well, I started doing poetry readings, and I noticed what performer doesn't notice when something seems to be going okay. I was doing a show with a nice young director, and when that was over, I said, and he is also a playwright, and I said, I really would like to put together a performance piece. I haven't written it yet, and I would like you to direct it. And he goes, sure. And then COVID happened. But anyway, in the interim, so I started writing, and I started giving him drafts, and he would give me notes, and I'd go back to the drawing board, and this went back and forth. And after about 1.5 years, we had a show and started rehearsing and put it up in 23.
Now, do all of them in the show? I mean, it's just funny. You're very funny. I was watching some of your YouTube videos. I was cracking up. I was watching one with you at the beach. It was making me laugh. Well, I was watching, there was one, and you were like going around town in your dress, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And I was just giggling. And so are the sonnets mostly comedies, or does it get into some deeper issues? Like, what can we expect when we read the book? What kind of genre are we popping into?
I would say I try to market the book as a humor book because people, you say, oh, I write poetry. And they're like, oh.
Oh.
And it definitely is poetry. And it's a very strict form of poetry. And free verse is all the fashion. And publishers are very snobby about it. I mean, it's really interesting. But everyone really likes a sonnet once they listen to it. But to answer your question, so they tend humorous. I would say that's the overall cast of it. But there certainly are pensive ones and ones that deal with some deeper things. I tend to put humorous twists on things. My next book is about death. So it's called Death Hacks. Death hacks.
Such a funny subject.
Well, if you can't laugh at death, you can't laugh at anything. So tending humorous.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like the cover and the way the shoes with the dress is very clear. This is a comedy. It's very clear that it's funny, but I always love something with a little heart as well. Now, you did mention your director. Talk to me about the collaboration process that you had with him, or maybe some other people that got involved in the project and how that worked for you.
Really, Matt Levitt and his partner, Lisa Seneca, they're the producers. They have a company called The Sixth Act, and they specialize they do Matt's plays, but they specialize in Shakespeare and Shakespeare adaptations, and really it's just the two of them, and they have just, done amazing things. So Eliza I met was in an acting class I was in 17 years ago, and Matt I met through her, and he cast me in a couple of things. So that's how I got to know. I mean, Lisa I adore, and they're both in their early 40s, and I like that because, I like the young people. I have very dear director friends who are my age, and I'm not shunning them. It's just that for this project, I just really wanted someone very different than me and someone who I could have even sired. So anyway, so they were great. I mean, the both of them gave me notes, and they also co-directed. And it was just, this kind of collaboration, because this is the first and only solo show I've ever done so far. I'd written one other play and some 10-minute plays ages ago, but that was a whole other thing. So having them certainly made me feel like I wasn't alone, and indeed I wasn't alone. And it meant everything, because you just everyone needs an editor, first of all. Everyone needs an editor. I don't care what you're writing. They're just invaluable, So I guess invaluable is what I would say about collaborating on something like this. You just can't be in a vacuum.
Absolutely. Solo shows are not solo.
They are not.
They're not. And it's hard because you have to find someone who is just as passionate about your project as you are, which can sometimes be difficult because everybody has their own projects going on. But what a great partnership you were able to form there with these people that are very interested in Shakespeare and adaptations, just right up their alley, and were able to lend some of that expertise. And look, Dustin, you need to send him an email or, and be like, hey, you need to come see my show. I'm living. You remember when you looked at me funny and said I wasn't going to do Shakespeare? Well, I am proving you wrong. Come see me in my tennis shoes and my Elizabethan dress.
That's a good idea. I'm sure he has dwelled on that comment of mine for these 49 years.
Why did I say that to that poor girl?
I feel bad for him. I'm sure that's stuck in his cranium.
It's weighing heavy on him every night.
I'll see if he's in my contacts. I'll see if I've got his personal email.
There you go. Okay, so I mentioned the costume. I love the costume. I feel like it's another character. So you wear these bright red Converse, and then you have a full Elizabethan dress on. But I've noticed, minus the petticoat, which I feel like is purposeful because it pops up and you see your little legs, and like you do all these cute little things. And I haven't seen the show, but I've seen videos and pictures and that kind of thing. And then you've got the gorgeous wig. So how did we come up with this costume? Where did she come from?
Well, Lady Penelope came to be way before my show. I started doing these poetry readings, and then one of many publishers who rejected me kindly said, well, you're an actress, and you say these sonnets perform well. Why don't you try to get some kind of online presence? Why don't you start making videos? So I started on that project. I don't know, it just came to me that it would be funny to juxtapose that costume with the things I talk about in my sonnets, which are not Elizabethan.
There's one with you vacuuming.
Yeah, when I started shooting those videos, I went through about maybe 90 seconds of being self-conscious out in public in that costume. And then, well, partly because it's LA and they go, oh, whatever. I went into Starbucks with it and she said, oh, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm on a coffee break. People really, they're so like, she's in something, so boring. You go to the mall. I only got one, and all the times I've gone to the mall in that costume for various reasons, I only got a really sweet reaction from a little girl when I was shooting that little thing on my outro of my videos where I'm on the merry-go-round. And there was a little girl there who was like looked at me like I was a princess. And it was just so sweet. And we had a nice little, it was just, but she was the only one in all of LA
that cared anything about you in a costume. And she thought you were a princess. Where did you source the costume from?
It photographs much nicer than it is. It's actually like kind of an expensive Halloween costume. I got it from historicalcostumes.com.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It works really well. I feel like it hits the genre the way it's supposed to. It does exactly what it's supposed to. So, and then you also play the ukulele in the show. Did you have ukulele skills? Like, how did you decide to incorporate this in? What's the story?
Well, I've been playing the ukulele for, I don't know, about 12 years ago or something. I decided, my husband said, what do you want for Christmas? And I was like, I'd like a ukulele. Because I just thought, I need an instrument that's really portable. I used to play the guitar in my youth, and unfortunately I could still pick it up probably, but I just thought, they're really cute. You can't be sad when you have a ukulele in your hands. They make everyone smile. Anyway, so I started playing a while back. So when I wrote the songs for my show, I wrote them to my skill level, of course. And no, it's a great instrument. I highly recommend it.
And was that something that you brought, or that when you were working with your directors, how did you all decide that this needed to be a part of the show?
I don't think they just had anything to do with the decision. I knew I wanted to incorporate music. And before I started officially writing this show, I had one song that I actually wrote a long time ago that I was like, and this is, as a writer, you never throw anything away. You never know when something might be just right for something you're working on now. I knew I wanted music, so I just started doing my first drafts. They all had songs, and so yeah, they were stuck with it, my collaborators.
They were like, you have no choice. Ukulele's making an appearance, and that's what's happening. And then you also have, I hope it's not giving anything away, but I've seen it online, so I feel like it's not. You have a big spinny wheel, which I've seen in some Shakespearean, like drunk Shakespeares or those type of things, but I didn't quite see what all was on your spinny wheel. So how does the spinny wheel work in the show?
Well, that is my audience participation moment. And I hope anyone who's hearing this is coming to my show won't not come, because it's voluntary. It's voluntary unless I have to come out there and get someone. I say, come up and welcome to Wheel of Sonnets. Come spin the wheel. Whatever sonnet it lands on, that's the one you shall receive.
Can I make this offer, since we've been talking about Dustin? Have you written a sonnet for him? And I feel like he should get one.
Oh, that's a good idea. I certainly could. I have not.
I would love to see that. It's like, Dustin, I don't know what else is going to be in it, but I feel like it's like going to be very cheeky, super cheeky.
Oh, yes. And especially since this was his idea. Now, a lot of our scene is ad-libbed because I'm in the first half hour of the movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'm so proud of being in that movie for the 90 seconds I'm in it. It really started my film and television career too. So, but the scene was very dry on paper. And it was just, did you know, I was playing one of Gordon Hunt's secretaries. Did you know Gordon Hunt? Yes, I knew Gordon Hunt. What was he like? He was a nice man. I mean, the script, it was very dry. And so Alan Pakula, a wonderful late director, was directing it. And so he suggested that we kind of be flirty and ad-libby. And I refer to our scene as the only sex scene in All the President's Men. See it and you'll see what I mean.
It exudes sex.
Well, it exudes flirty. But anyway, so Dustin started playing footsies with me under the table. So I definitely could include that in my sonnet.
Oh my gosh, you've got it. When we see each other soon, I want to see the first draft of it. It's so great.
What rhymes with footsies? Tootsies?
There's lots of words you can put in itsies on the end, and maybe that should be the title of the sonnet, utsies.
Yeah, utsies.
So again, like you have spent most of your career working in film and television and stage and working with people or going into a project. And so now you are venturing out and doing your own solo show. What have been some of the challenges that you have faced kind of making that switch from people casting you to you casting yourself, if you will?
It is very empowering to cast yourself. It's one of the most proactive things you can do as a performer. And as an actress, spending most of your life waiting for permission to work. As I have gotten old, that has gotten old. So I think, and I've always wanted to do a solo show. It's been in my head, but unformed, I had sort of had some kind of very vague vision of it, but never the what, and then the what came to me. But I would say the biggest challenge I ever had was my nerves. Now, I'm not a stress monkey kind of person, and I think stage nerves is a healthy thing. But for whatever reason, I just was crazy sick with nerves leading up to my debut. And that's not a caveat or a warning to anyone who wants to do. This was just me. I'm just sharing. I don't know what was going on with me. My blood pressure went up. It was just, I'm totally over it. I am never going there again. But it was weird. So that was my biggest obstacle leading up to my opening at the Hollywood Fringe.
And it's good to hear, though, of like, you have been in this industry for a while and you have experienced some really great success and been around some really kind of prestigious people, right? As we were just saying, and you're doing your solo show and now all the nerves come back. And it's like, where did this come from? But I think that's a really good lesson for us to hear that, especially when we care about something a lot.
Plus you're alone. I've never been, alone on stage. There's no one to pick up the slack. I can't go, what's my line? Whenever because I've been on stage, believe me, plenty of times when the other actor has gone up or you've gone up. And I'll mention one time in Hot L Baltimore, there was an elderly character. I don't remember how old she was. She seemed ancient to me. She was probably my age, but she had a super long monologue and she was starting to go up like all the time. And she would do a very nasty little thing, like turn to you, and I'd be on stage listening as we all were listening to this old character reminisce. And she would turn to you and go, what was I saying, darling? It's Penny's line. And so finally, we all got sick of it. She would do this. And finally, one night, she turned to me and she goes, what was I saying? And I said, I don't know. You were rambling on about something. I was like, sorry, no help here. And by the way, I wasn't listening either. So, I was listening, but I wasn't. We were just all up to here.
Well, I'll ask my last question, which I love to ask all of my guests. What has been the most interesting or awkward Fringe interaction that you've had?
I guess I can be happy to say that I don't have any nightmarish, awful things. I'll mention two quick things. I was on stage at Edinburgh, and I have 3 sound cues in my show. And for whatever reason, there's nothing wrong with my tech person. They doing exactly what they were supposed to do. I have 2 telephones. I have a cell and an oldie time phone. And the first cue was the oldie time phone. For whatever reason, that phone rang, and I turned and went and answered the cell phone. And not only that, and of course I was talking, as one does in a one-person show, and suddenly I'm like, holy crap, if I keep going in this direction, the show's going to be over in 10 minutes. And because I just suddenly jumped. And, I kept talking. You know how you've probably experienced this, and any actor on stage has, how your mind is working on 2 tracks. You're there doing the scene, but in your head, I'm going, I have to get back over there. I cannot go to this. We'll be out of here in a half hour instead of an hour. What am I, Anyway, I got myself back there, but that was my only pride is I had 2 people in the audience who were, I'd been to their show and they're terrific, and they were Shakespeare people, and I was just going, oh, they're here, no. And then after the show, they said, oh, we just loved the structure of your show, and I never rat myself out. Never rat yourself out. Don't go, oh no, it's terrible. I bet. Don't ever do that. Don't ruin a good compliment, even if you feel like you sucked and maybe whatever. Don't ever don't do it.
Well, Penny, thank you so much for visiting with me today on What the Fringe.
Thank you.
So great for having you. All right. Well, Penny's show, Sonnets from Suburbia, is playing at the San Diego Fringe this May. Her first 2 books in her Sonnets from Suburbia series are available on Amazon, and there will be links in the show notes to that. You can learn more about Penny on her website at pennypeyser.com, which is Peyser, and keep up with her on Instagram at Penny Peyser and on Facebook at PennyPeyserFanPage. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hance. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound, and our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and now on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. Keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. Look, people will do anything to sell tickets to their Fringe show. Sometimes do we bend the truth? Maybe, but be careful because people will fact check you if you walk around telling patrons.
I had a scene with Dustin Hoffman.